What's going on, Summoners? Welcome back to another ProGuides video. I'm Kangas and I'll be your host for our mid-patch update. This video is following up on all the changes from the beginning of patch 11.8 and updating our tier list for all 5 roles. Our challenger coaches and analysts have been keeping track of all the data so that you don't have to. So hit that sub button and let's get right into it. Alright, so we know you guys are still waiting for a placement for Gwen, however, she's off to a rather weak start at the moment. Our analysts want to give her a little bit more time before actually placing her into a tier since they haven't seen enough of her to accurately gauge her power level. So we'll update her placement next patch. Now, if you looked at just the stats, you wouldn't have even known that Gnar was nerfed this patch. Gnar's W bonus movement speed was reduced this patch, but he is as effective as ever. Moving forward, he retains his placement in the S tier. Also, before going over the rest of the top laners, here is our question of the day. Which champion or champions have you picked up this season and why? Back in season 8, I played a lot of brand support, and I don't know why, but for some reason I picked it back up again and my win rate is super high with it. But that's probably gonna change once I hit higher ranks, but let me know yours in the comments down below. Next up, Yorick received massive nerfs this patch, targeting his newfound burst added to his E. His Mistwalkers deal less damage than before, except when his enemies decide to take long, extended fights against him. With all the nerfs that he received this patch, Yorick has unfortunately lost a ton of his effectiveness and higher elo, but we only dropped him down into the S tier because he does continue to dominate in low elo. Next up, we have Dr. Mundo, who received a variety of changes aimed at pushing him out of the jungle and into the top lane. To summarize what's happened, Mundo's top lane win rate has gone up by a bit more than 3 whole percentage points, while his jungle win rate has dropped by a whole %. Although the sample size of top lane games is quite low, this implies that Riot has accomplished what they hoped to do in this patch. We've adjusted Mundo's placement and pushed him into the A tier. His win rates across all elos is pretty high as a top laner, but his low play rate prevents us from pushing him up any further. Players need some time adapting, as part of why his win rate might be so high is that players aren't used to seeing him in the top lane yet. Finally, Rumble received some massive changes this patch aimed at pushing him out of the mid lane and into the top lane too. Alongside lowered magic resistance, he received a major buff to his E as well as his passive to better equip him against tanks and bruisers. He continues to find success as both a top laner and a mid laner though, but we're still moving him up to the A tier as it seems he's in a pretty good spot after the immense number of buffs that he got. And the final change we've made to the list is that we've moved Vladimir into the S tier, Malphite down to the S tier, and Wukong into the OP tier. Vladimir has found an immense new power with the small buff to his Q. This has always affected him as a top laner, and we've moved him to reflect this. Wukong has seen more and more play as various items and direct nerfs to other champions have only made him stronger. His high damage, backline access, and crowd control allow players to carry with ease. Over the course of a few patches, more and more magic damage has found its way into the top lane, and that's not really good for Malphite. Armor is a lot less do-it-all stat now, and we've had to move him down a tier as a result. So our OP picks are Darius, Garen, and Wukong, followed up by Camille, Maokai, Poppy, Cho'Gath, Riven, Mordekaiser, Fiora, Urgot, Nocturne, Jax, Gnar, Sylas, Yorick, Malphite, and Vladimir in the S tier. With the top lane covered, let's go ahead and move into the jungle. Let's start off by just saying there were a ton of jungle changes this patch. First off, Lee Sin got a massive buff to his E's cooldown. We knew he'd pop off in high elo and kinda consider him an S tier pick there, but we're satisfied with leaving him in the A tier pick overall. Zac received a small damage buff to his W, and the result is that his win rate has jumped up by about 2%. This is enough for us to move him to the A tier. One of the biggest changes this patch was for Rammus. He received a mini rework aimed at increasing his versatility. The result has been quite intense, as his ban rate has shot up to 20% in high elo. Rammus feels extremely strong right now, so we actually moved him into the OP tier. Those junglers covered, we have a bunch of interesting picks that got buffed, including Zed. We moved him to the C tier at the beginning of the patch, but we'll need a little bit more time to assess his strengths because he doesn't actually see that much play in the role. And the same applies to Darius, who got a buff to his passive damage against monsters. While both he and Zed's win rates did go up, we haven't seen enough of them to really make a clear assessment, so we're leaving Darius in the C tier for now. Of these off-meta jungle picks, a few are actually seeing a ton of play. Mordekaiser is one, and he's proven to be a solid jungle pick after these changes. Overall, his win rate is at 51%, which definitely exceeded our expectations. Mordekaiser's clear speed is acceptable, and his ganks, as long as he can land a Z, are really good as well. After level 6, his ganks are lethal, as players will not have Quicksilver Sash that early in the game, and it's basically a free kill every time. Morgana is up next. Our bad on this one, but Morgana has been adjusted into the OP tier immediately. The increased damage on her W against monsters got the job done for sure. Increased clear speeds has led her to become a monster AP jungler. The fact that she can now flex between support, mid, and jungle has made her an even stronger pick than before, even before these buffs, and she was definitely playable with the crowd control she brings to the table, making her a solid ganker. Her high elo jungle win rate has shot up to over 53%. Already a top tier support, it's no surprise that players have begun valuing her so much more than before. And Diana is last on the list, but she unexpectedly saw a giant increase in her win rate this patch too. The increased clear speed and attack speed might have been overkill actually, as she, like Morgana, has gained an immense amount of popularity as a jungle pick. She's also up in the S tier considering that she also flexes into the mid lane. So our OP picks are Hecarim, Elise, Morgana, and Rammus, followed up by Kha'Zix, Graves, Evelynn, Nunu, Ivern, Fiddlesticks, Viego, Udyr, Diana, and Shaco in the S tier. Now let's cover the mid lane. First up, Annie received a small nerf to her W's mana cost this patch. We'll keep it quick and reiterate that this change wasn't really going to do anything, and she's remaining in the S tier. In Orianna's case, players that main or really enjoy playing her continue to suffer. Her dominance in competitive play has led to her receiving nerfs, which her solo queue statistics would indicate she needs buffs instead. Her win rate currently sits at 46% overall. This is partially due to the nerf that she received on her E's bonus resistances this patch. In spite of this, we want to leave Orianna in the B tier. We still know she's a strong pick, but making her work in solo queue can be rather difficult, as players who pick more aggressive snowball picks like assassins are typically rewarded more amidst the chaos. With a very nice buff to her Q, LeBlanc has been popping off in elite levels of play. While she continues to find close to a 50% win rate elsewhere, it's clear that experienced players can single-handedly dominate games with her burst damage and tricky mobility. So for now, she'll remain in the S tier. Next up, Cassiopeia received a nice mana cost reduction on her E. We left her in the A tier as we didn't expect this buff alone to make too big of a difference. She'll stay there for now as she doesn't feel that much different. We anticipated Vladimir popping off this patch, but not by this margin. His win rate as a mid laner has exceeded 53% after a single buff to his Q. The nerf hammer might be coming soon, so try and ride the hype train while you can. Obviously, Vladimir's up in the OP tier right now as the decreased cooldown has not only increased his sustain in lane, but also made him much more threatening in the mid to late game. And the final changes that we made to the mid lane are that we moved Rumble back up to the A tier and Seraphine down to the B tier. Seraphine's been underperforming with all the nerfs that she previously received, and also because the mid lane meta is just extremely aggressive right now. Rumble received nerfs to his magic resistance, but his win rate hasn't really changed that much as he did get some extra MR shred on his E as well as some other buffs. So our OP picks in the mid lane are Katarina, Zed, Yasuo, and Vladimir, followed up by Pantheon, Victor, Talon, Annie, Galio, Fizz, Echo, Kiana, Viego, Diana, Ahri, Yone, LeBlanc, Kassadin, Sylas, and Anivia in the S tier. By the way, I know that we're just wrapped at the mid lane, so I want to let you guys know that we have a ton of resources like a course by ProBelter that you can check out at ProGuides.com. If you're a mid laner trying to get better, you definitely want to take a look, and we also have some coaches on there too, so if you need to work one-on-one with somebody so they can point out what you're doing wrong and right in the laning phase, check it out. Alright, next up, we got the bottom lane. The only change that we saw in the bottom lane is that Aphelios received a small buff to his built-in lethality and his ultimate. Sadly enough, his win rates haven't seen an increase yet in spite of this change, so for now, we'll leave him in the C tier. We do have a couple of other changes to report though. First, Samira is now up in the OP tier. While we don't think she's an OP pick in high elo, Samira's success in low elo, as well as her high ban rate overall, indicate that she is an excellent pick for the average player. Not surprising for a marksman who has a wind wall. We've also actually headed Tahm Kench to the A tier. I find this a bit funny, but we have to do it because the Son of Tahm Kench duo is a solid one. It's slowly but surely gaining popularity, and it sees a noticeable amount of play in Europe as well as Korea. Caitlyn has also been moved down into the A tier. She's not able to snowball as hard as many other champions like Tristana and Vayne, for example, and while she's reliable, Caitlyn doesn't really pop off as hard as a lot of the other picks who can usually dominate games after getting a single kill. Jinx and Samir dominate in the OP tier, and following them are Tristana, Kai'Sa, Ezreal, Ashe, Vayne, Jhin, Seraphine, Swain, and Sivir in the S tier. Finally, we'll wrap it up with my main position, supports. Thank God, Thresh got a big nerf to his E's cooldown this patch. Although we expected his win rate to drop considerably, it kinda didn't. I guess he's just really that broken right now. Although Thresh is only mediocre in low elo, he continues to see plenty of success in Platinum and higher. Elite players still value him as well, and we've moved him back to the OP tier in this update. Another champion who's up in the OP tier is Senna. With all the various system changes, Senna has been left kind of untouched. While many other champions have come out weaker, Senna is beginning to shine and find success across all elos and all servers. In Korea, she is an extremely popular pick, the second most only trailing behind Thresh. Oh, and globally she's the third most popular, with Lulu taking the second spot, kinda surprisingly. And the final change is that Maokai has been moved back into the S tier in this update. Like Senna, he's been untouched, and with a lot of enchanters weaker than they were before, that poke damage sticks on much harder than it used to. He doesn't have too many losing matchups, and he can always resort to stacking a brush and zoning his opponents away from a part of the lane. So your OP picks for supports are Leona, Thresh, and Senna, followed up by Lulu, Bard, Morgana, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, and Maokai in the S tier. And that'll wrap up our mid-patch update for 11.8. Thanks so much for watching, really hope you enjoyed it, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Also check out the description for a link to join our community Discord, but until next time, as always, best of luck on the Rift. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time.